All right, today we're going to edit this image, which has some examples of pattern. We see the columns being repeated. We see the arches here. Underneath this building, we see these kind of rectangle brown and black forms being repeated, and some more columns that are exactly the same being repeated. But again, we also have some examples of rhythm in here as well. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this background, and I'm going to call this clone. Okay, we're going to come over here and we're going to use our cloning tool. And we're going to adjust our opacity to about 50%. And we're going to make sure we have a nice soft brush along the edge here. And then we're going to come over here and we're not going to over clone this. Okay, so it's super important that you make my brush a little larger, that you don't overdo the editing. So I'm just going to remove some of these white little things I see in the water over here that I think are just kind of distracting and really don't add to the image. So I'm going to zoom in using my navigator a little bit here and then move this navigator right over. Okay. And I'm just going to go in there and use this. Okay, so you never want to overdo. It's better to be a little more conservative in your editing than to overdo something. You want it to look natural, okay? So be careful that you don't accidentally like clone into this wall here. You see how you have that brown little dot there? You don't want to do that, okay? You want to be really careful. And if you don't like something, then go and undo it over here in the history, okay? So go back a step and undo it. All right, so I just want to get rid of these kind of little weird things in the water. I don't even know what they are, probably like pollution or something, just hanging out in there. And then I'm going to move this over. I want to leave these birds because that's part of the natural environment, and maybe get rid of some of this stuff here. And then maybe these little white specks here, but leave this stuff because this is just like reflection from the building. So that looks nice. And I'm going to move over a little bit. I see a little white speck I want to get rid of right there. And now I'm going to move up here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of these people. But what I do want to do is put my little crosshair right along the edge of the sand and clone that, move it over, and get rid of those people kind of gradually and slowly. There we go. Same thing, put my crosshair right along the edge of the sand and the water, move it over, slowly get rid of them. Same thing here. Maybe put my crosshair right here along this edge, move it over, get rid of those people. Same thing here. So you notice that since I am at 50%, I kind of have to click a few times, don't I, on the little keypad there, to really get rid of all of this. Okay, maybe get some of the water here. Bring in water over. Get rid of the sign and that's right there. Now I gotta get rid of these shadows because these people are gone, right? So I got to get rid of these shadows. Oops, don't like that. So I'm gonna undo. There we go. And then I'm gonna clone this edge of the water and sand and move it over. Now I'm gonna use some of the water to clone these people. And then I'm gonna zoom out and maybe I'll just leave those couple of these people here. Okay, it looks pretty good. Thinking that I might want to maybe add a little bit of this lighter area kind of in here a bit. And maybe kind of just get some of this water here a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now I'm going to zoom out Okay, so that's the trickiest part about editing is making sure it looks really natural. So now I'm gonna duplicate this layer and I'm gonna do dodge and burn, but I'm not gonna do very much because if you look at this image, it's pretty evenly lit everywhere. There's just a few areas that I want to just darken a little bit. So I'm going to go over here and use my dot burning tool. And I'm going to make sure I have a nice soft brush again. And I'm going to select highlights and about 25%. And I'll make my brush a little bigger. I'm going to just burn the sign slightly using my brush a little bigger here. I could also use my bracket key or my bracket key to make this a little bigger. Oops, I just did the sky on accident, so let's undo that. And let's just click right there a little bit and just darken that sign. I'm gonna darken this wall a little bit here. Not too much though. A little bit of these windows, just one click a little bit, just kind of maybe like that. Um, and then I'm gonna move my navigator over. I'm just gonna darken this wall here a little bit, but not too much because it looks unnatural if you don't. And maybe the sign, maybe this little window here. I'm gonna back up and see how that looks. Looks pretty good. And then I'm gonna just zoom back in again and then just look and see if there's anything else. All over here on the left looks pretty much pretty good. Like I can see lots of details in there. And so we turn this on and off. We can see that now the right side's a little more balanced with the left side, isn't it? Okay. I'm going to duplicate this layer and I'm just going to do a very subtle um, lasso, feather, and levels along this bottom part of the image right here, just so I can bring out make this a little bit lighter. So I'm going to come over here, grab my lasso, intersect. I'm going to make sure my feather is at 100%. Make sure I'm using the intersect brush 100% before I select this. Okay, I'm just going to just kind of draw around that, and then it's going to automatically feather at 100%. Go to image adjustments, and I'm just going to subtly use my levels here to just lighten this area just a tad, not too much. I don't want to overdo it. Just a little bit, just to bring out those birds a little more. And then I'm going to say okay, and then let's check that out. Okay, so I'm going to click off of that and I'm just going to look at that. Okay, just a little bit. Perfect. Um, and now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my adjustment layers and I'm going to do a hue saturation and I'm going to bring up my saturation, just pop those colors and then maybe make this a little more red in tone. So I'm going to do like a -5 a little bit or -4. Close that up. Okay, so there we go. Just kind of pop those colors a little bit, make it a little more red like what we normally see at sunset. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in a brightness and contrast layer. And I'm just going to add a little contrast and a little bit of brightness just to the bottom of the image. Let's see how that looks. Now, I don't want my sky to be so bright, so I'm going to actually be introducing a new tool today, and that is the layer mask. So I'm going to click on my layer mask here. And I'm going to come over here and grab myself a brush tool. And I'm going to make sure my brush tool is 100% the largest size. Add a really soft brush. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure I've got black. I'm going to use this little toggle button here and make sure I've got this black over white. And I'm going to move my opacity down to about 50%. Okay. And I'm going to actually make my brush even bigger by using the bracket tool on my keyboard. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just kind of quickly just go over this. Now, this is where your Photopea might slow down a little bit, just to let you know that the layer mask tool, sometimes it likes to slow down a little bit, but that's okay. Just let the computer think. And you should have kind of like this kind of gradation going along this mask here, okay? So let's turn that on and off, and we can see here that what I've done is I have Yeah, so you can see here what I've done is I've kind of darkened this area down here at the bottom, but I left my sky kind of a nice gray tone, okay? And now we are ready. So we're going to come over here and we're going to go File, Save as a PSD. And again, don't forget, folks, you need to be saving your PSDs, okay? Make sure you save your PSDs. And then what I recommend is you come over here to your downloads. When you're completely done, go to your downloads and you in your computer and see if you can actually rename your files, okay? Um, all right, so that is done.